U.S. Army Mechanized and Armored Forces, along with the forces of the United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt, and Syria, also launched attacks, and they are moving north with great speed. With the exception of one early afternoon engagement between the Marine Task Force and an Iraqi armor unit, contact with the enemy can best be characterized as light. Coalition air forces from the United States, the United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Italy, Canada, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Qatar are all conducting surge air operations to support the ground commanders, and they continue to strike key strategic targets. United States, United Kingdom, Saudi, and Kuwaiti naval forces are conducting carrier air, mine sweeping, naval gunfire support, and of course amphibious missions along the east coast of Kuwait. 10 hours into this ground offensive, more than 5,500 prisoners have been captured. And we received reports of many hundreds more north of our positions with white surrender flags. Friendly casualties have been extremely light. As a matter of fact, remarkably light. So far, the offensive is progressing with dramatic success. The troops are doing a great job, but I would not be honest with you if I didn't remind you that this is the very early stages. We are a little more than 12 hours into this offensive, and the war is not over yet. That concludes my prepared comments, and I'm now ready to take a very few questions. Richard?
General Schwarzkopf, can you give us an idea of how long, based on what you know now, and things go according to plan, how long would you anticipate this thing is going to last, and how do you account for the fact that the opposition has been so light so far?
I would first of all say that the opposition has probably been so light so far because of the excellent job that all of the forces to date have done in preparing the battlefield. With regard to your second question, it's impossible to say how long it's going to take. Let me put it this way, it's going to take as long as it takes for the Iraqis to get out of Kuwait and the United Nations resolutions to be enforced.
There have been some reports today, and I know this might be an ongoing situation, but can you at least tell us whether we have any forces in Kuwait City? There have been reports of some paratroopers seen over Kuwait City, these reports by Kuwaiti residents.
I'm not going to in any way discuss the location of any of the forces involved in the battle to date.
General, have any U.S. or Allied troops encountered chemical or biological weapons?
We've had some initial reports of chemical weapons, but those reports to date, as far as we're concerned, have been bogus. There have been no reported chemical weapons used thus far.
General, would you say the campaign so far is going better than you'd expected at this stage, or about on par, or slightly worse?
I would say that so far we're delighted with the progress of the campaign.
General, you said that with one exception, the contact with the enemy was described, you said light.
Yes.
Can you provide any details at all about the exception?
Yeah, this afternoon, about 2 hours ago, one of the Marine Task Forces was counterattacked with enemy armor. The Marines immediately brought their own artillery to bear. They also brought their anti-tank weapons to bear. We also brought our air forces to bear, and the counterattack was very quickly repulsed, and they retreated. I can't tell you the exact number of lost tanks, but there were several tanks that were lost in that particular battle. About 2 more questions. Over here.
Has the resistance been light because the Iraqis are retreating, or are they simply not engaging you? Are they surrendering? I mean, what exactly are they doing?
All of the above.
General, you say the opposition is light. Is this because you have avoided a frontal confrontation with them? Are you going around or over, and is that why there's little opposition?
We're going to go around, over, through, on top, underneath, and any other way.
Have you gone through, sir? Is that why it's light?
One more question.
General, have you encountered the Republican Guard yet?
Some.
What kind of resistance have you gotten from them?
Over here, last question.
General, are you going to pursue Iraqi soldiers into Iraq, or are you going to stop at the Kuwait-Iraq border?
I'm not going to answer that question. We're going to pursue them in any way it takes to get out of Kuwait. Thank you very much.
Sir, when will we see you again?
And that was it. General Norman Schwarzkopf, the American commander in Saudi Arabia, giving a briefing to the press, about 2 hours and 45 minutes ago. It's, as of now, the most detailed briefing we've received, although, as the general said, he can't give any more details because of tactical security reasons. And we'll continue our special coverage here on Sunday Today.
But we can tell you that Robert Gates, Deputy National Security Advisor, is saying Iraqi forces may be setting fire to Kuwait City now and are reported to have engaged in wholesale massacres of young men in an extraordinary medieval kind of experience, his characterization. Now, from all accounts this morning, the ground war is advancing rapidly, with Allied forces reportedly meeting little resistance. Jamie Gangel has been standing by for us at the Pentagon. Jamie, what have you got?
Good morning again, Mary Alice. As we've been hearing all morning, the reports out of the Pentagon continue to be very optimistic, as NBC's Pentagon correspondent Fred Francis reported just a half hour ago. So optimistic that one senior administration official told us that this attack could be wrapped up in 3 days in the initial stages. We are told that there are at least 3 columns of heavy armor moving in, one going into southern Iraq to cut off the Republican Guard there, one going straight through Kuwait toward Kuwait City, and one, we're told, led by the Saudis going up the coastline toward Kuwait City. We also know that there are amphibious and naval forces moving, but we don't have any exact details on that yet. But as you said, what we do know is that this is all happening very, very quickly. We had a report from Secretary of Defense Cheney just a short while ago on that.
The resistance has been light all across the front. The breaching operations have been successful. The casualties, fortunately, have been extremely light, as Norm said. One of the big problems we've been faced with are just dealing with all of the prisoners that are coming south.
Massive numbers of Iraqis, in fact, have either surrendered or been taken prisoner. The latest number we've been given is 5,500, but military intelligence officials tell us that even in front of our frontline troops, waiting for the Allied forces to get there, there are Iraqis with white flags waiting to surrender. Garrick?
Thank you, Jamie Gangel in Washington. We've not had very many pictures of what has been happening in the war so far. We hope to be having some in the minutes and the hours to come. But right now we want to go to Bill Hyland, who's been following the developments in the war zone and also what the ramifications may be in the Persian Gulf and elsewhere. You are the editor of Foreign Affairs magazine, used to work in security affairs and government. When you look at the situation today with the rapid progress, the apparent rapid progress in the prosecution of this war and the fact that it may be over in just a very few days, what do you see happening in that part of the world, in the Gulf, when it is over?
Well, I think the first problem will be what to do about Iraq. We will probably have achieved our objective, which is, as the President said, to eject Iraqi forces from Kuwait, but the war may not be over. At least there may be a mopping up and so forth. Do we want a new government? I think we're going to have to bite that bullet. Do we disarm the Iraqi forces that are just north of Kuwait? Do we put American forces in to patrol Kuwait? In other words, all of these kind of post-war questions are rushing up very fast, much faster probably than anybody anticipated.
Well, let's look at one of these principal questions, and that is the kind of government that remains in Baghdad. Now, if these reports are true that we're getting out of Kuwait City, that the Iraqis are doing a scorched earth policy, that they are carrying out mass executions of civilians there, it's going to be very hard for anyone to live with that current regime in Baghdad, to accept it as part of the international community.
That's true, but it may be somewhat like last week, Garrick, where Saddam Hussein's strategy may be to preserve himself and his regime, to give up Kuwait, to let the forces there be decimated, but to hunker down north, at some line north of Basra. Then what do? Do we continue to pursue him, or do we say that war is over and we're now going to have to deal with him politically?
Well, what weapons do we have when the shooting stops? We have all these tanks and these planes and these bombs and, of course, the men and women over there in that war zone. But once the fighting stops and the Iraqis are out of Kuwait, we have economic sanctions. Do we keep those in place? Is that enough?
I don't think that's nearly enough. If Saddam is determined to remain in power, kind of a Hitlerian-like Götterdämmerung, as someone said earlier in the program, we may actually have to deal with the fact that he's still in power in Baghdad, which is a far different war, and no one has really speculated what that might mean for us and for the Arabs. The Arabs may not be willing to go deeply into Iraq, and we may not want to either.
So in a way, what you're saying is, though we might want to drive Saddam from power by physically going to Baghdad, we're certainly not going to do it unless the Arabs, the other Arab nations, the coalition partners, are willing to do it, and that does not look likely.
Well, it may not be. We may have to call in the Russians finally and say, look, there's something has to be done to end this war on some terms other than allowing Saddam to remain in power, and perhaps they can use some influence to arrange a new regime in Iraq.
Now, you are a longtime Soviet observer and a Soviet expert. What do you think Mikhail Gorbachev is doing right now? He failed in his peace efforts the last several days. Do you think he is just marking time, waiting, trying to get back into the action when this kind of a situation you described could arise?
I think that's right. I think he's on the sidelines. He did what he had to do, probably placated some of his domestic opponents who had accused him of selling out an old ally in Iraq. And I think he's waiting now for the right moment. In effect, he purchased a place at the table, and so did Iran. And I think they're all waiting for that moment when the ground battle in Kuwait is over, and then we face the problem of how do we bring this war to an end, on what terms, who's involved, and so forth.
But what could Mikhail Gorbachev do? Yes, he might have a place at the table when the war is over, but what do you do at that table? What kind of cards does he hold in his hand? What can he play?
Well, he doesn't have many cards. That's really the astounding development in this whole war, is how little influence the Soviet Union has had. It's a very weakened country because of its internal problems. It does not play the kind of role that it would have played, say, 5 years ago or certainly 10 years ago. So we don't have to be too concerned about that, but we do have other interests that are important in dealing with the Soviet Union that have nothing to do with the Middle East.
Perhaps we don't want to be concerned or shouldn't be concerned about the Soviet Union becoming weaker, but we should be concerned about Mikhail Gorbachev's position. And a moment ago, Jim Miklashevsky, one of our White House correspondents, was saying there is concern at the White House about Gorbachev's status. For example, today there is a demonstration of 150,000 people at the Kremlin supporting Boris Yeltsin, Gorbachev's real opponent. Yesterday, the other day, there were 100,000 people supporting the hardliners. How do you assess Gorbachev's position?
I think it's very, very dubious that he can remain in power unless he aligns himself completely with the right wing and the conservatives, which he has been doing more or less the last several months. I don't see how he can straddle the fence, being on the left and then on the right. And I think in March, when they have the referendum on the future of the Soviet Union as a union, March 17th, that will be a critical showdown. And whether he survives, I don't think anyone can say.
But if this is true, as you say, that he has to go more to the right, to the hardliners to stay in power, the hardliners want a role in the Middle East. We're sort of completing the circle here, aren't we? It means that Mikhail Gorbachev would come back into this post-war era being perhaps much tougher than he has been up till now.
Well, that may be true, but the right wing has also said, we don't want to be involved in this war. This is a colonial war, an imperialist war. We Russians shouldn't have sold out our ally Iraq, but we don't want to get involved in any way. No troops and so forth. So they're a kind of a nationalistic isolationist phase in the right-wing policy, but I think you're correct that when they return to the game, which they will eventually, it will be in a much tougher position.
All right, Bill Hyland, editor of Foreign Affairs, thanks for being with us this morning. And we'll continue with a special edition of Sunday Today in just one moment.
You don't have to get on your knees to keep your toilet clean. Just use this, my 2,000 flushes. It's so easy. All you do is put it in your tank. It helps keep your bowl fresh and sparkling clean automatically with every flush.
As we received just a moment ago, this shows the military convoys are pushing north into Kuwait. Just a small example of the massive logistical as well as military operation which is underway there. You can also see the overcast skies, which has been just a slight factor in the military campaign, which otherwise is going very, very well with very light Allied casualties. And also today, some pilots who've been flying missions over Kuwait, over the Iraqi forces, reported on what they've been seeing on the battlefield beneath them.
I think you've done a good job, and hopefully it's going to be short and we'll have a few casualties. I just hope we've made it a lot easier for the ground troops to go up there and do their job.
We'll be very happy when they say it's over. I'm surprised that they haven't capitulated yet, because I think after what we did to their Air Force, they know that they can't beat our Army either. And it's too bad that we may have to lose some people, and they're certainly going to lose a lot of people. It's just too bad that that's going to have to happen for it to end.
The intensity just magnified. It was, like I said, unbelievable. For 40 miles wide and hundreds of miles long, it was just black smoke.
And of course, that black smoke he is referring to is the smoke from the oil wells that have been put on fire, set on fire by the Iraqi troops. 150, 200 oil wells burning. We were talking about the environmental damage that might be causing in the future. We know some of the military problems it's causing right now, particularly for the fighter-bomber pilots who are flying missions in support of the Allied forces over Kuwait. We go back now to Washington and Mary Alice.
Thanks, Garrick, and let's ask General Bill Odom about the difficulty for the fighter pilots of having to fly into that smoke from the oil fires in Kuwait.
Well, it certainly makes it more difficult for them to identify targets that they've been sent to hit. I don't know how much it impedes the ground operations, but it certainly can cause problems in that regard. But if the artillery is working well, that can provide fire support without much interference from the smoke. So they're not
laser guidance system doesn't need to have a clear shot?
Yes, if laser-guided bombs would not do well at all through that smoke. So they
would not.
No, the aircraft using those weapons, if they were trying to use it through heavy smoke, would have difficulty. But you can still use artillery from the ground to attack targets that are close enough to do any damage to our forces, and that'll go through dark, smoke, or anything. So we shouldn't conclude from this that our ground forces are without very heavy fire support against the enemy that they're coming up against.
We just saw the first pictures that we've seen from the Kuwaiti theater, convoys punching north into Kuwait, we're told. It looked, frankly, like a David Lean production, a desert filled with vehicles. Is that what we might have expected?
Precisely. If you're taking 2 or 3 or 4 divisions, heavy armored divisions, that deep into enemy territory, the vehicles alone, the combat vehicles, are enough to give you that kind of production.
Are these troop transports or supply vehicles?
Those are supply vehicles. Imagine the gas and the oil that has to be consumed by the artillery pieces and the tanks and the armored personnel carriers going forward. What you're seeing in those trucks is the supply of gas to keep them going on forward. They burn it up very rapidly.
We're also told that many of those trucks are filled with bottled water.
I would expect that's the case.
One of the things we're piecing together with pieces of information here, we heard General Schwarzkopf say that in the initial stages of this ground war, 5,500 Iraqi troops had surrendered. We have heard from Fred Francis, the Pentagon is reporting busloads of POWs, Iraqis, coming back across the Saudi border. We're now just now getting a French report of 1,000 POWs captured by French soldiers. Is that problematic from a logistical point of view?
It's a big logistical problem, and I know that when we were deploying our forces out there, that almost all of the MPs out of the National Guard and Reserve were called up in anticipation of having to handle very large numbers of prisoners. So I think General Schwarzkopf has anticipated this, but in spite of all the planning and anticipation, it will still be difficult to take those people into custody, to be sure they're disarmed, to provide them with water and food rapidly enough so that some of them don't fall from exhaustion. It's really a challenging task now.
Fred Francis reported that there were so many POWs that they didn't know what to do with them.
Well, I think they know what to do with them. The question is
how long will it take?
How long will it take, and whether they have enough people assigned to that to manage it. But it's a delightful kind of challenge. It's much better than having to kill them.
Let me ask you a question that's sort of been at the back of my mind all morning. We know that every possible prong is being used on the ground, artillery, fighter pilots. We also know that the U.S. battleships, the Wisconsin and the Missouri, are firing from offshore. How can they do that when they can't see where our troops are, or can they?
They have fire control teams out with the leading elements in the U.S. ground forces. And those elements, those ground control teams have communications to the ships. And they identify the targets.
And they can be that precise.
And they can be that precise. Well, there are a number of ways to do it. They maybe already have coordinates they fire on, and even if they hit to the left or the right or too far over or too short, these teams can adjust that fire, can give them corrective information.
One more question. We know that one of the biggest threats was the Iraqi use of chemical weapons. We have no indication that they've used them at all, but there are trucks, apparently, which can detect whether gas is being emitted from anywhere. Can you tell us about that?
Well, some of those, I understand, have come from Czechoslovakia and some of the European countries. They have these devices. The Soviet models of those were built in abundance in Eastern Europe. And they have devices in them so that they sample the air and analyze it and very quickly report or identify what the element is in the air that could be harmful.
Okay. General William Odom, thank you for being with us, and we'll be checking in with you throughout this day. And our special edition of Sunday Today will continue in just a moment.
New Alpine Lace American Slices.
Tastes so good.
Low cholesterol and 50% less sodium.
Hey,
2/3 less saturated fat.
healthy and tasty American. Tastes so good. Alpine Lace.
A new American cheese snack idea. Grill it up and slice it up so little fingers can pick it up. Cut it up, fun it up, guaranteed they'll eat it up. American cheese. Kids are up for it anytime.
Today, there's a diet pill that can help you lose weight without caffeine to make you nervous.
All my life, I've been struggling with my weight. With Dexatrim, I finally lost weight, and without being hungry.
No matter what else you've tried, Dexatrim can help you lose weight. Just one works all day, morning through bedtime, to control your appetite and help you lose weight.
Dexatrim did it for me. I lost weight and feel great.
Today's caffeine-free Dexatrim. Nothing works harder to help you lose weight. Nothing.
Here on this Sunday morning edition of Sunday Today, we're continuing to follow the developments both on the ground and what lies out there ahead. Gary Sick, a familiar face, is with us this morning. Mr. Sick, you're a specialist in the Persian Gulf area, Iraq, Iran, other countries, but also let's take a moment about the question of power, American power, the sheer magnitude of what this achievement, this military achievement, may mean in political terms after this war is over. In many ways, it's be compared with the end of World War II, isn't it?
Well, I think the really amazing thing about this whole episode is that we are, if I'm not mistaken, seeing the end of an era. We went from our great power after World War II, where we dominated the world, through the trough of Vietnam, where we really withdrew and pulled back. And I think, and actually the Reagan administration, when it first came in, and certainly the Bush administration has continued that, is to create a new assertiveness on the part of the United States. I think what we're seeing now is a tremendous new assertiveness on the part of the United States. This was a calculated effort by George Bush. The decision to go to war was made weeks ago. All of the diplomacy that went on was in some respects a cover and a sideshow for the main event, which was to drive into Iraq and defeat them decisively.
All right, now we see that. Now it is happening. Soon it will be over. And when it is over, we will have these 500,000+ American troops in that part of the world. Most of them, we hope, will come home, and we expect that. And yet the presence, some presence will remain. Not just in a very volatile part of the world, Gary, but right on top of the largest oil reserves in the world. Now, we cannot ignore this. We may say, yes, there's a Saudi government, there's the Kuwaiti government, we're just helping them out. But we are sitting on top of that oil, too.
Well, let's remember that there were two things that made this possible. One, unlike Vietnam, we had a real cause. We had American interests that were involved here, which were oil, and they were genuine. There was no question about that. And two, we had the perfect enemy. That, in effect, the real conspirator with George Bush in this effort to move us along to a greater assertiveness was Saddam Hussein. And because of his own peculiar character, he played into that role constantly, and we're left in this position. The real question, it seems to me, is that if we talk about a new assertiveness and a new range of power for the United States, is what are we going to do with that when the war is over? Not just how many troops do we keep in the field, but is in fact the talk of a new world order, which George Bush is deliberately talking about. What does that mean? Are we going to, what are we going to be pushing
Well, let's be
for?
specific. A couple of examples. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Do we really resolve that, force that to a conclusion?
Well, I think what we're seeing now in the anger and humiliation that the Arabs are expressing is their sense of rage that their problems have been allowed to go along without any attention at all. And I think, at a minimum, we're going to have to address that issue very, very rapidly. The other thing I would like to see us push for a little bit is neither of those countries, Kuwait Iraq, nor any of the other countries in the region has ever had the consent of the governed in choosing its government. And it would be an opportunity, in fact, for us, through the United Nations and its facilities, to actually push for a new breath of democracy.
A much desired goal, democracy in this area. But let's talk about some world capitals we don't talk much about these days. Germany, in Japan, in Western Europe. Now, what these governments, our allies, or at least supporting us financially, more or less, are seeing when this is over is that it is basically the American troops which are there on the ground in the Persian Gulf. And I come back, yes, again, to the question of these oil fields. We are there. It's not the Japanese who are there. It's not the Germans who are there. There are some British there, but it's going to be the Americans. They're going to see that as a symbol of very real American power that they're going to have to deal with.
That's right. And they've seen it from the beginning. I mean, the way we've seized the initiative in the United Nations, put a coalition together, held it together. And remember that statement that Schwarzkopf made this morning about the fact that, you know, there are Kuwaitis and Saudis and Syrians and Egyptians that are in there fighting at the same time. It's really an amazing achievement. And it means that these people, including the Turks, for instance, have bet that the United States was going to win, and they wanted to be on the winning side when this thing is over. That means not only that we are going to win, but that we have a great deal of responsibility about what we do with our victory when that's finished.
And along with that responsibility is the power, and the question is, what do we do? How do we use that power? Gary Sick, thanks very much for being with us. We'll have more coverage as we continue here on Sunday Today in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Today, there's a diet pill that can help you lose weight without caffeine to make you nervous.
All my life I've been struggling with my weight. With Dexatrim, I finally lost weight, and without being hungry.
No matter what else you've tried, Dexatrim can help you lose weight. Just one works all day, morning through bedtime, to control your appetite and help you lose weight.
Dexatrim did it for me. I lost weight and feel great.
Today's caffeine-free Dexatrim. Nothing works harder to help you lose weight. Nothing.
You don't have to get on your knees to keep your toilet clean. Just use this. My 2,000 flushes. It's so easy. All you do is put it in your tank. It helps keep your bowl fresh and sparkling clean automatically with every flush, up to 4 months. That's because 2,000 flushes has chlorine. Bleaches away stains with every flush for up to 4 months. Try my 2,000 flushes. Cleans your toilet with every flush.
The biggest battle to take place in a quarter century. 1.2 million troops aligned on either side, and we have scant information indeed to share with you about how that's going beyond the briefing of General Norman Schwarzkopf, the commander of Allied forces in the field, who says it's looking tremendous, but it is not over yet. Joining us now is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tom Foley. Nice to have you here, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Have you gotten any late briefings, or do you expect to get any briefings?
Well, I spoke to the president last night about 8:45 from Camp David, where he was about to return to Washington. I haven't spoken to anybody this morning. I assume that as the events unfold, there will be more information provided. But so far, the news is very good. What we hear from General Schwarzkopf and others is very, very encouraging.
Is this campaign going so far about the way you might have expected it to go?
Well, I think that it's going better than one had a right to expect. In any engagement of this kind involving huge numbers of forces, there can be some very severe pitched battles with heavy casualties. But so far, the level of surrenders and the progress made by the coalition forces is really more than one had a right to expect. General Schwarzkopf warns, of course, that we're in the early stages of this land campaign and other things can happen, but we can all, I think, give a prayer today for the troops that this war ends very soon.
And how far ought we go geographically in ending this war? What would you expect? Right to the Kuwaiti border? The goal is to eject Iraq from Kuwait? Or would you expect the Allied troops to go as far as Basra?
Well, I think that as long as it's necessary for military operations to bring the war to a close, we will be in Iraq from time to time, I assume. But I don't think our goal is to occupy Iraq, and the president has never said that the goal is anything other than to drive Iraq out of Kuwait and to secure the legitimate government of Kuwait. In the process of doing that, the Iraqi forces are going to be heavily decimated in terms of their material and ability to fight any future engagements, and that's good news.
Talk to me.
But although the president has welcomed the possibility of Saddam Hussein being removed by his own people, he has not made this a war aim of the United States.
And I do not think we ought to think about occupying Iraq or continuing a long-range U.S. presence in the region with large numbers of forces. We are going to be at the head of a victorious coalition, but I think we're going to achieve the results that we set out to achieve.
Okay, Garrett Gutley has a question.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, what you were saying about this post-war era is something we've been discussing, a thread that has run through this morning's broadcast. That is what happens afterwards in terms of an American presence. Now, what you're saying in terms of not wanting to have an American presence there in the long run is what people were saying after World War II. We wouldn't keep our troops in Europe, in Germany, or in Japan, and yet there's still tens of thousands in Japan and hundreds of thousands in Europe, in West Germany.
I didn't say we shouldn't
Korea.
have any presence. I said we shouldn't have a presence in very large numbers. I think if there's a peacekeeping force, it ought to be largely composed of other countries, particularly perhaps neutrals. The United States should not, in my judgment, bear the heavy costs of reconstruction in this area either. It's an oil-rich region. All of the countries basically are very rich countries with a few exceptions. And they have the capacity over a long term to bring about whatever restoration is necessary. The American taxpayer should not be called upon to bear additional huge costs of the economic redevelopment of the region.
I think everybody agrees with you on that score. We shouldn't pay for it. There's enough oil money out there to finance that. But my question is, in terms of American troops there, at least a residual number of troops, perhaps 20 or 30,000, which is a number bandied about. Because, yes, you speak about an international peacekeeping force of neutral nations, but experience has shown that these forces do not really prevent war, armies crossing borders, that it would take some kind of an American allied presence there to make this really something that would be a workable security force. Don't you see that coming up on the horizon? And if so, how many troops do you think of the U.S. forces could stay there?
I think perhaps air and sea forces in some degree of capacity, but I would not look kindly, unless there was no other consequence, to the presence of large numbers of U.S. forces in the region. I think we tried to play a peacekeeping role in Lebanon and became the source of attacks. The United States will have led a coalition to victory here. I think it's possible that we will have so much credibility on the military side that it won't be necessary to actually station huge numbers of forces there. If U.S. forces are involved, of course, they could be in a more minimal role than even 20 or 30,000. I would not think that many would be necessary.
Gentlemen, I'd like to bring in the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Les Aspin, who's joining us from Milwaukee. Congressman, what do you think about the long-term role of U.S. troops in the region?
I think what Tom Foley's saying is absolutely right. I think that basically we would be relying on Arab forces, UN forces, maybe some of our forces, but I think back over the horizon for our forces, I would say some naval forces and some air forces somewhere over the horizon, and maybe some ability to put ground forces back in, but I would say 20,000 U.S. forces max, but I would look for the possibility of really the peacekeeping being done in a tripwire fashion by Arab countries under UN auspices.
What has occurred in the past 36 days, and I'd like to ask this of both of you, rewritten the political agenda for the coming year? Congressman Aspin.
Boy, the political agenda for the coming year, you mean as far as what Congress is doing?
The legislative agenda, yes, the legislative
agenda. Boy, ask Tom Foley. He's a better person to judge on that.
All right. And then I'll come back and ask you.
Well, we're going to give the forces, obviously, everything they need in terms of financing the remaining weeks or months of the war activity. And we're going to want, in the course of that, to see that all the contributions that have been pledged by other countries are met. The American taxpayer should have the lowest possible additional cost of this heavy burden. Beyond that, we're going to have to pay some attention, obviously, to our domestic needs. We have needs in health care and education and the development of our own infrastructure and so on, and we're going to attend to that.
Mr. Speaker, Garrett Gutley again. The question of reparations has been bandied about in a rather loose way, but now we may have to face it directly. We want Iraq to pay for the damage in Kuwait and elsewhere, but do we have the means to force them to pay? How would you go about it?
Well, of course, again, there's not a war aimed to occupy Iraq, but there is a UN resolution of October 29th that calls upon Iraq to pay for the cost of damage to Kuwait. I suppose there are a variety of ways it could be done to enforce that, including some continued use of sanctions, economic sanctions.
Congressman Aspin, would you agree with that the UN sanctions remain in force?
Yes, I do. I think, let me tell you where I think we'd be at the end of this war, the ground war here. We will be in a position where the United States and the Allied forces control the territory, a good chunk of the territory south of Basra, which means that we control all of what is now Kuwait, and the Kuwaiti government will be coming back in and reestablishing itself. But we will also control some part of the country which is now Iraq, and particularly that part of Iraq which borders on Kuwait. The economic sanctions will still be in place. So I think at that point we need to back off a little bit and think about, how do we settle this? How do we settle the issue at the end? The Iraqi government will hold some POWs that we want back. We will hold a lot more POWs that we would like to give back to Iraq. We still have some bargaining leverage. We will control some Iraqi territory. We will control still having the economic sanctions in position. There are certain things we would like to have. We would like to have an Iraqi government that ultimately recognizes the legitimate interests of the Kuwaiti government, the borders of the Kuwaiti government, the government of Kuwait. We would like a government in Iraq which is not going to pursue chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons. All of this, then, I think all of this, I think, means that what we have is a peace settlement at the end of all of this, where we've got some things that we want, we've got some things that we're willing to give up in exchange.
Mr. Speaker, is that scenario right?
I think that's pretty close to right, yes. I agree with Les. I think we'll have the means to extract some further concessions from Iraq after the military battle is over.
Okay, thank you very much. Les Aspin in Milwaukee and Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tom Foley here, and we'll be back after this.
New Alpine Lace American Slices.
Tastes so good.
Low cholesterol and 50% less sodium. Two-thirds less saturated fat.
Healthy and tasty American. Tastes so good. Alpine Lace.
A new American cheese snack idea. Grill it up and slice it up so little fingers can pick it up. Cut it up, fun it up, guaranteed they'll eat it up. American cheese. Kids are up for it anytime.
Today, there's a diet pill that can help you lose weight without caffeine to make you nervous.
All my life I've been struggling with my weight. With Dexatrim, I finally lost weight, and without being hungry.
No matter what else you've tried, Dexatrim can help you lose weight. Just one works all day, morning through bedtime, to control your appetite and help you lose weight.
Dexatrim did it for me. I lost weight and feel great.
Today's caffeine-free Dexatrim. Nothing works harder to help you lose weight. Nothing.
I'm Brian Gumble. Monday morning on Today, we'll update you on all the events in the Gulf and talk, too, with Mark Harmon about his role in a new NBC TV movie. That's Monday morning on Today.
Now, stay tuned for the Tarnex million-dollar treasure hunt. While rummaging through her grandmother's attic, Ruth found what she thought was a box of worthless flatware. Before she got rid of them, she decided to see if she could clean them with Tarnex. And within seconds, Tarnex uncovered a sterling silver surface for 12.
You never really know what you have until you've cleaned it with Tarnex.
Jack struck it rich cleaning his basement when Tarnex turned an old piece of metal into a beautifully etched serving tray.
You never know what you have until you cleaned it with Tarnex.
Sally hit the jackpot at the flea market when she discovered a set of 18th century copper cookware under years of tarnish.
You never know what you have until you've cleaned it with Tarnex.
So get Tarnex. It's guaranteed to instantly find the original silver, gold, brass, or copper under the tarnish, or return it to place of purchase for your money back.
Tarnex is available at these fine stores.
Boondoggling for Steelhead, tonight at 6:30.
Administration and military officials are saying the ground war is going as planned. Details are sketchy, but the news coming out of the Gulf has been upbeat. Tough to remain tight-lipped with a smile on your face. That is the not uncomfortable dilemma that most of the people at the Pentagon seem to be in right now. Fred Francis is standing by over there. Fred?
Mary, it's not just going as planned, it's going beyond anybody's wildest expectations, according to senior officials here. One official told NBC News, this is too good to be true. Within the past hour, one general officer told NBC News, this may be called the 4-day war. We are told by a senior administration official that the president has been told to expect only 3 to 4 days of heavy combat. And let me give you an idea that some ideas. The initial reports coming back as of a few hours ago is that there were fewer than a dozen American casualties. Fewer than a dozen American casualties. Some examples of the combat: the 2nd Marine Division had only 3 tanks damaged and no casualties after Iraqi forces rained, quote, and that is a quote, rained artillery down on them. And the officer, the public affairs officer with the 2nd Marine Division, and that division is in western Kuwait, said Iraqi troop morale is boot top level, quote, they have none. Another example of allied forces: French troops have taken 1,000 POWs, Iraqi prisoners of war, 30 miles into Iraq, and in that engagement they only had 1 wounded, and his wound was not life-threatening. And a very senior administration official told NBC News, and this is quite remarkable, here we're less than 24 hours into it, that the administration is now planning on a post-war scenario. Quote, the senior official said, we will keep the economic sanctions in place and force Iraq to pay war damages, war reparations. Very much like we heard Congressman Les Aspin say a few moments ago. This senior official said that depending on the mood after the war and developments, quote, Saddam certainly merits being tried as a war criminal, and in all likelihood that will happen, end quote. That same senior official said, if the Iraqi people dump Saddam, everything is workable. Mary Alice?
Being watched very closely from the White House, where Jim Miklaszewski is standing by. Good morning, Jim.
Mary Alice, last night when the president made his announcement that the ground war was underway, White House officials described his mood as somber and very serious. But after receiving a briefing from Secretary of Defense Cheney at about church time early this morning, his spirits were lifted, and we're told now that the president is in good spirits. And if the president's getting the same information that Fred Francis just reported, that there are fewer than a dozen casualties, we assume the president gets the same information Fred does, that he's got to be very happy about that. Going into this ground war, that was the biggest risk, both militarily and politically, for President Bush. If there were to be heavy American casualties, public support for this war against Iraq could have turned around very quickly here in the U.S. But as Fred just reported, things appear to be going very well there. The president is reported to be, again, in good spirits. He'll be following the progress of the war from the White House today. He went to church this morning, but we're told we're not expected to see him again today. Mary Alice?
Okay, thanks, Jim. And obviously, we won't be getting detailed information for, we were told, about 48 hours after the beginning of the ground offensive. That would bring us to tomorrow. There's a tight lid for secrecy reasons, and that's understandable. We're going to Garrett Gutley in New York. Garrett?
Well, Mary Alice, perhaps not much detailed information is coming in, although the general direction of this war, this military campaign, is already well known. We are getting a considerable amount of reaction coming in from the war zone, from Saudi Arabia, and our correspondent, Deborah Roberts, is there. Deborah, good evening in Saudi Arabia.
That's right. Good evening, Garrick. This land battle is the largest U.S. Marines have faced since World War II. And the word here in Saudi Arabia is that they are handling the whole situation pretty well. The 2nd Marine Division stormed into Kuwait, we are told, early this morning, and within 2.5 hours plowed through Iraqi defenses. A spokesman for the Marines said that they did encounter some tank damage and some booby traps along the way. And a pool reporter says they may have encountered chemical mines. But there is no evidence that we've gotten here of any troops being injured by chemical mines. In fact, the Marines say they went in fully prepared for chemical warfare. They are dressed in their gas masks, their chemical suits, chemical gloves and boots, we are told, and they appear to be faring very well. Now, as Fred said, unlike some of the earlier reports, the Marines have encountered some resistance. They don't say exactly how heavy the Iraqi fire was, but they did meet some. Along the way, though, we are told they have picked up Iraqi prisoners of war, And the Marine spokesman says their morale is very low, apparently weakened by the incessant pounding they have had over the last few months. The Marines, though, apparently are very proud of their job so far. They feel like that they are encountering no surprises. That's the word we're getting here in Saudi Arabia. Garrett?
Thank you very much, Deborah. And we'll be having more news and reports, a military analysis of what all this means and what could come in the coming days of this war, which may be a very short war. Now we go back to Mary Alice.
Okay, thank you, Garrick, and I'm with Al Roker, who's been watching the weather over the Gulf because that is such a crucial factor, even in a short war.
That's
what do you
right.
expect?
Well, we're expecting an improvement, at least as far as the weather is concerned. Cold front moving through that has dropped some rain and has kicked up the winds and caused some poor visibility, at least should be moving through the area. As you'll see on our satellite picture, it's causing some blowing dust. Those clouds will be moving past. You can see clear skies behind them. It should remain that way for the next 24 hours. Some rain moving in again Tuesday, then temperatures warming up with clearing skies in that region. For us, closer to home for this day, we're looking for sunshine up and down the western coast with mild to warm conditions, cool in the mid-Atlantic states as you move further south, warm. This will be the last day of some record-breaking heat down in Florida, sunshine in the Gulf Coast, snows in the Rockies all the way to the Central Plains, and some snows in New England as well. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods. Today, we're looking for 38 degrees in Boston. Could be some snow showers in that neck of the woods. 37 degrees in Cleveland. We're expecting partly cloudy skies. 62 in San Francisco, and we'll have sunshine. 54 in Seattle, and sunny skies as well. And that's the latest up to the moment. Mary Alice?
All right, thank you, Al. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Hard to believe, but that was me, Dan Dierdorf, before I lost 40 pounds in 4 months with Ultra Slim Fast. Hey, I'm a big eater, but with Ultra Slim Fast, I never felt hungry. The plan is easy. I had a delicious shake for breakfast, another for lunch, and then a sensible dinner. I'm back to my college playing weight, and I feel terrific. Best of all, I'm not shaped like one of these anymore.
Ultra Slim Fast. Give us a week. We'll take off the weight.
Some people perspire.
We sweat.
The only protection for us?
New Ara XX Sports Scent.
It's the only leading sports solid that doesn't leave a white flaky mess.
New Ara XX Sports Scent helps keep us extra
dry.
Why do I enjoy healthier Alpine Lace, low cholesterol and low sodium Swiss low cheese? Because it tastes so good. And now it's even lower in fat.
The healthy and tasty Swiss low cheese tastes so good. Alpine Lace.
One problem facing Allied military commanders in the war, and all those of us here at home who are following the progress of the war, is that it is progressing so rapidly, it appears to be going so well that we have to start to think what will happen after 3 or 4 days. James Dunnigan, our military analyst, is with us today. They're saying now it could be over, the substantial initial phase at least, the securing of this whole area in 3 to 4 days.
There were two extremes of how they expected it to turn out. If the Iraqi morale was indeed as low as they were getting indications of, they were hoping for a 6 or 5, maybe a 4-day war. If some of the Iraqis they had not yet taken prisoners from were made of sterner stuff, they were afraid it might have gone on for a couple of weeks. It looks like we're on the safe side of that estimate of maybe a 4-day war. However, the bad news is, as we've already heard, there are a lot of mines still out there. There's still possibility of friendly fire. You're going to have Allied friendly units meeting, not knowing exactly where each other are. That's a classic case of friendly fire. There's still chances for people to get hurt. The big mystery is, where's the left hook? The reports are our people are out there in Iraq, as they put it.
All right, but once these positions are secured, 3 to 4 or 5 days by midweek, then there is a big decision. Do we just stay there? Are we satisfied with getting the Iraqis out of Kuwait? Or there is the other option, theoretical perhaps, but we should address it now, and that is to push further north.
You've got a good point there. In fact, that is the most important point right now. It's one thing to fight a war in a desert against an army that you've pounded for weeks and cut off their supplies. Historically, that's the ideal situation. If they move towards Baghdad,
You're going right up here.
Up to Tigris and Euphrates River Valley.
And pull back here a bit and see how far Baghdad is up on the map.
All right. Hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. You're no longer in a desert. You're in a heavily populated area. There were no civilians down here. And in this area, Saddam and his Ba'ath Party have over 500,000 armed civilians.
And you do not want to have to face that?
No, not especially since most of them are at my back.
Okay, so any military commander would be advising the president that's an entirely different kettle of fish, so to speak. Yes, it might be nice in theory to drive Saddam Hussein from power out of Baghdad, but the price of that militarily seems to be just too high.
Going up here is more like Vietnam than the Six-Day War.
All right, so prudence would say we stay down here, and that's why our officials are saying it is perhaps a desire but not a goal to drive him from power.
The latest announcements are about keeping the embargo going, indicate that we're not planning on marching into Baghdad and have a little chat with Saddam.
All right, now if we look at here, the situation here after midweek, if all continues to go according to plan or indeed even faster than plan, what does happen there? Do they have to go in and physically attack those units which are still holding out, or do they simply wait and starve them out, lay siege?
It's somewhat sad what's happening here because of the local politics involved, the Kuwaitis wanting to get their country back and the Saudis wanting to aid their neighbors, the Kuwaitis. You'll probably see Arab troops going in there and doing the really dangerous house-to-house fighting to clear out the Iraqi special forces and police units that are inside Kuwait City. After that happens, it's really just a lot of human interest stories on what you do with 500,000 Iraqi prisoners of war.
So are you optimistic that Allied casualties, particularly American casualties, could be kept quite low?
I think it's quite possible we're going to keep it under 1,000. But again, all you have to do is hit 1 or 2 battalions of die-hard Iraqis, and that can run the casualty count up real quick. There's also still the possibility of the Iraqis getting a couple aircraft off the ground with chemical warfare tanks, spray tanks on them. We still haven't seen much in the way of chemical weapons, although, again, they're more terror than actual casualties. But just the casualties taken from stumbling around all these uncharted minefields, there are still going to be people hurt.
And again, we don't have all the details yet. That'll be another 24 or 48 hours
exactly.
In the
middle
future.
of the week, we'll know a lot more.
James Dunnigan, thank you very much. And we'll be back with more of our extended coverage as we continue here on Sunday Today in just one moment.
Today, there's a diet pill that can help you lose weight without caffeine to make you nervous.
All my life I've been struggling with my weight. With Dexatrim, I finally lost weight and without being hungry.
No matter what else you've tried, Dexatrim can help you lose weight. Just one works all day, morning through bedtime, to control your appetite and help you lose weight.
Dexatrim did it for me. I lost weight and feel great.
Today's caffeine-free Dexatrim. Nothing works harder to help you lose weight. Nothing.
You don't have to get on your knees to keep your toilet clean. Just use this. My 2,000 flushes. It's so easy. All you do is put it in your tank. It helps keep your bowl fresh and sparkling clean automatically with every flush, up to 4 months. That's because 2,000 flushes has chlorine. Bleaches away stains with every flush for up to 4 months. Try my 2,000 flushes. Cleans your toilet with every flush.
Well, that picture speaks for itself, the wounds of war. Now talking about this war and the casualties that may occur there, we're talking about what happened in the 1960s, the 1970s in Vietnam. A number of Americans are still trying to come to terms with that war, what happened then, and some Americans actually are going back there. We have a report now from KING about one American went back. The reporter is Brendan McLaughlin of KING in Seattle. Here is that story.